the motion be agreed to. Ms Birch.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I rise to speak to an amendment that I have moved that has been circulated in my name. And the amendment, whilst it omits all words after this assembly, I draw those opposites' attention to notes G,
Scurry,
which
before you
is...
go on, Ms Birch, I don't have a copy of the amendment that you're talking about. I don't know whether other members do, but I don't. Was it circulated? Great, thanks. Okay, sorry, Ms Birch.
Thank you. And to the mirth those that are across the way there, I draw the attention. It is simply an omit and a change because it was easy for those opposite to understand, but clearly I've been proven wrong. Under notes there is a new clause G, and that says that the 2016-17 Commonwealth budget has imposed increased efficiency dividends on the Australian Public Service. The other two additional clauses or notes are under 2, which calls on the government to do 2 new D, condemn the increased efficiency dividends imposed on the Australian Public Service by the federal Liberal government in the 2016-17 Commonwealth budget, and a new E, continue to support the ACT economy in light of the impact caused by the ongoing cuts to the Australian Public Service. Now, we submitted on this side, as anyone in the Admin and Procedure Committee would know, that Mr Hinder's motion was submitted before 12 o'clock, as is the norm. And last night, the Australian community got to see for the first time what the federal Liberal government has in mind for our society. So extreme were some of the elements in that budget, I felt it necessary, and those on this side felt it necessary, to bring these amendments to the Assembly. Now what we have seen last night and what we saw last night will affect the Canberra public servants, will affect Canberra families. So anyone on that side, everyone on that side that can dismiss the impact on the Australian Public Service of the families here, our neighbours. So every time you go to Coolamon Court and park your car, you have a mobile office, and a member of the Australian Public Service will come and talk to you. And when they come and talk to me, I will say that you laughed at their job cuts, because that's what you're doing. You are laughing and dismissing the impact. Mr Wall says if you're a public service, you've still got a job. Well, say that to the 11,000 that no longer have a job, courtesy of the Coalition, and the others that will lose their job, courtesy of you. Now, the Chief Minister... Stop the clock, please, Madam Speaker.
No, I have no intention of stopping the clock. I asked you to address the chair.
Oh, sorry, Madam Speaker. I thought you asked me to sit in my chair. I do apologise. But the Chief Minister has already pointed out that there was an 11,000 positions gained through the Labor government, and the losses have been under the Coalition government. Now, we are already hurting from savage cuts of the Liberal government, and we thought that this was going to be the last of these cuts. But true to form, there is no truth on those in the federal Liberal government. As we've heard, the unity ticket was torn up and thrown away, and any notion that any cuts to the Australian Public Service here in Canberra would be eased is purely and absolutely a nonsense. The efficiency dividend imposed on the APS has increased, and this will hurt agencies, their ability to deliver services, and indeed we will see jobs cut. Modelling by ACT Treasury shows 1,400 Canberra-based Australian Public Service staff will lose their job. 1,400. So through you, Madam Chair, Mr Wall dismisses that, smiles at it, smirks at it, laughs at it. So for those 1,400 families, individuals, families that will lose their job, that is the response that we get from those opposite. And of course, the greatest power as supporter of small business, will also understand 1,400 jobs, not only are those individuals and families affected, but the other businesses and small businesses that support those will also be affected. As the Chief Minister said last night, this budget is breathtaking hypocrisy. The Liberals claim that this budget is a jobs for growth, but their so-called efficiency dividends and cuts to national institutions will see more than 1,000 Canberrans lose their job. It's pretty hard for Canberra small business to grow when the Liberals keep on sacking their customers. They've broken their word to Canberrans after the previous Prime Minister assured the Chief Minister that the cuts were over. Unsurprisingly, they've done nothing to plug the gaping hole that have been left in our schools and our hospitals. Now, Mr Hanson, through you, Madam Speaker, came in here and said the Canberra Times was all for the budget. Well, I think it was also pointed out, and I'm looking at a headline, Federal Budget 2016, paying for ACT as national institutions see jobs go. That's not a good headline. I don't think that's a positive headline that Mr Hanson should be proud of. The article goes on to say the ACT is a loser from Treasurer Scott Morrison's first federal budget. The budget papers suggest the workforce of Canberra's national cultural institutions will drop by about 63 full-time equivalents, with the National Library losing 28 positions in a move blamed in part on the decline in revenue from external sources. The government will save nearly $2 billion from efficiency dividends. So off the back of Canberra families, the Federal Liberal Party, supported by those opposite, want to save $2 billion off the back of Canberra families. This article also goes on to say the National Gallery workforce will drop. The National Portrait Gallery will see less jobs. And it also goes on to say that in March, the government revealed that national institutions will be forced to deliver nearly $40 million of savings within 4 years, above the earlier federal budget cuts. Staffing cuts and effective the efficiency dividend and other economy drives in the public service disproportionately impact Canberra institutions and other government agencies. That is a disproportionate negative impact on Canberra families. Another article, and I'm sure Mr Hanson must have a blind spot on some of these headings. Budget 2006, no respite from hard times for public service. And the article goes on to say that Scott Morrison's first budget offers no respite for the Australian public service, with more cuts, few new jobs and greater efficiencies demanded as the coalition strives to transform the government. Well, it's transforming it, but I don't think for the better. It goes on to say the coalition considers it can see a time when there is little left to cut from the public service. So your federal counterparts are cutting and cutting and cutting until, the article concludes, by 2019, 2020, the government anticipates there is little meat left on the bone. They're your federal colleagues. That's what you smirk and laugh about when you see the impact of Canberra, the federal Liberals will have on Canberra families. Another article in the Canberra Times, and I'll go to the second sentence, and I think the Chief Minister has referred to it, and Lee Sales on ABC last night. What was the point of your 3 years in government, and why should the voters re-elect you? That is telling, and I will say, when I'm out in mobile offices over the next 5 months, why should the ACT voters vote for the Canberra Liberals, who can back in with smirk and laughter the 1,400 job cuts of Canberra families? Now, Mr Hanson then went on to say, we're just doing this as a political game, and what connection does the Canberra Liberals have indeed to the federal Liberals? And it made me just think of a couple of items that I have brought here that clearly show that these two are very connected. So any attitude of the federal Liberals is reflected in the Canberra Liberals. And I brought a motion back in September of last year around childcare, and Ms Lauder at the time brought in an amendment to my motion spruiking the federal government's community support program. So, you know, over there, spruik and back in everything that the Fed Liberals do. Unfortunately for Ms Lauder at the time, one, she got it wrong, the program had been disconnected, and two, no Canberra-based childcare services was eligible for it. In fact, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but there was hundreds of thousands of dollars ripped out of the Early Education Childcare Centre, backed in and encouraged by the Canberra Liberals. And let's talk about Gonski funding. You know, yes, there is money in this budget, not enough, nowhere near enough. But again, I have brought to this place motions asking this Assembly to seek full funding, yes, for government schools, but importantly for non-government schools that are disproportionately affected by the non-funding of the Gonski formula into the ACT. Those opposite, led by Mr Hanson and Mr Dosbot, voted that motion down because they didn't want to upset the federal Liberals. When we look at the tax cuts that everyone is saying is a good thing, or everyone over on that side is saying is a good thing.
The member's time has expired.